Okay. Let's who's first for feedback? Juno is first for feedback. Let's also get some Spotify going. Okay, Juno has said, any tips on how to fix this? I've been painting for about 2 hours. I'm just trying to paint a character I really like. I like how things are going, but the eyes are a big problem. I don't see the eyes as being a huge problem. Juno's then said, I've been trying to fix it for ages, but they always end up looking uneven and just bad. And we have this image as a reference for the lighting. So let's expand it this way. I think you're really missing the mark when it comes to matching this reference. And you're dabbling around in mid-tone for a while. Let me just screen share in VC as well. So, if this is the reference you're trying to copy, I'm honestly not too sure which parts you're taking from. You said the lighting. Maybe I can see where you're describing a shadow falling across the chin. But the rest of it doesn't seem like you've copied the lighting much at all. So let's just analyze this lighting and think about what's happening. We have a pretty clear split between what's in light and what's in shadow, right? And that split separates the face into two halves. It's gonna go all the way over there. Right? And everything on this side is darker than this side. Right? Maybe you're trying to imply that there's shadow, but you're just not going dark enough, right? We want this very definite, clear separation between these two sides. We don't want to get them confused. We want to keep them as two very distinct groups. So maybe we start by doing that. Let's give it a go. You've already got this color set out for your shadow, which I don't mind. I think that's fine. So honestly, let's just collapse all of that into shadow, including that ear. I think the ear is also probably too high. The eye is also going to be darker, right? Now, this group can be fairly flat, like there doesn't need to be a lot of variation within the shadow group. In order for this to feel 3D, just need to bear in mind how it's going around things like the mouth. It's going to affect the lips in the same way. Like, notice that there is a lit and shaded side to the lips, right? So let's do that. So this side, let's say, is lit. This side is shaded. I choose who to critique just by the order in which they're posted to the Discord, that's all. Sometimes I'll prioritize people who are in the voice chat as well so that they can respond to the critique live. So another thing that's happening here that you're missing out on is just some of the 3D aspect of the mouth. So let's just think about let's go something else. I'm gonna say that this is the barrel of the mouth, and that's gonna come up into the fulcrum, and then we're gonna have to deal with nostrils up here. So that's the nose, right? And if we say that this is the barrel of the mouth, we could say that's the top lip if we wanted. You know, it's slightly different in proportion to yours. There's a bottom lip. On your drawing, you're sort of implying that the chin comes out of the bottom lip, like that, right? Which is just not quite true. It tends to be that this bottom lip sits on a few other facial muscles, right, that are going further in before the chin protrudes. So you get the shadow area under the bottom lip. It can also be just cast by the bottom lip, so that the bottom lip itself is a 3D form. It's going to cast shadow, but we can get that in. And then let's just try and copy the shape of that shadow onto the chin. So immediately just, I think, separating it into light and shadow is quite helpful. Maybe we want to emulate what's happening with the ref, where actually there's that sort of softer cast shadow from somewhere else on this left side of the face. So we could do that if we wanted. I think more of this forehead is going to be lit, especially considering that bit of hair is only coming from there. Okay, the next thing to talk about, if we're splitting the face into light and shadow, is the quality of those shadows, and I mean the quality of the edges on those shadows. So typically you have core and cast shadows. Maybe we could just get rid of, flatten out this side of the nose. Look at this here. The bridge of the nose down onto that cheek, they're both in light, and you just lose that edge. We don't need it there. It's unnecessary. And maybe this, you know, underneath this eyebrow is not going to get so dark. When you make it so dark, you're saying that the character has very thick eyebrow, not even eyebrows, like a very heavy brow ridge, like a sort of how you would imagine a caveman. Which it might be that the character looks like that, but looking at your ref of the character, I don't think that's going to be true. Barely have a brow ridge at all there. Anyway, quality of shadows. So when we're thinking about the quality of a shadow, you have two base kinds, I would say. You're going to have this sort of shadow on a sphere. And then you're going to have the cast shadow on the floor. Okay, and the difference is that the shadow going around the sphere tends to be softer. I say tends because there are no rules. The reason it's softer is, if we just think about this as a curved surface and our light is over here, the surface, as it gradually changes and turns away from the light, receives less and less and less, and so it's sort of a slow gradation from shadow to light, right? Whereas the cast shadow, so this on the floor, that tends to be a much harder edge, because what's happening is that the rays of light are just blocked by another object, so they can't get there. Cast shadows do get softer the further away they get from the light source and the object that's casting the shadow, etc, etc. But generally, we can think about it like this for now. So, core shadows are soft, or form shadows are soft, cast shadows are hard. So let's go around this face. I'm literally just going to do it with a smudge tool, and we can say, well, look, this nose, I think this nose is turning away from our light source. So it's going to be soft. So I'm just getting the smudge tool, I'm just softening it out ever so slightly. This chin is turning away from the light source. It's going to be soft. This shadow under the mouth, I think maybe over here is where it's turning away. But maybe here we should leave that harder because it's where the lip is actually casting a shadow. Right? We could have another cast shadow here if we wanted. We could say, look, the nose is casting a shadow underneath it. Right. I think our nostrils could get warmer and lighter. I think maybe we could imply a little bit more of the structure of them. So yeah, that's going to be a cast shadow because the hair and the rest's in shadow. The lips, those are going to be form shadows. They're going to be soft. And we get something that just feels a bit more 3D, right? Because we're following these very sort of simple, basic principles to arrive at a conclusion that functions, that works. So whenever you're constructing these things, I feel as though maybe you should just slow down a little bit and start constructing it in a way that allows you to follow like a rule set to get to a conclusion, right? It seems like you're saying, well, I'm following this ref, but then I'm not sure that you're actually looking at this as hard as you could be and breaking it down and understanding, well, why is this in shadow? Well, it's being blocked by another object or whatever else. So that's the main thing for this, I think, is how it's lit. But I think we've seen this for a couple of weeks now. Proportion-wise, I personally wouldn't choose to have the eyes this size, but that's a choice that you can make. Obviously, compare it with your reference. This character seems to have much more of a forehead, and I would lean into that as well. I think you're selling your character short at the moment. They could have at least that much forehead. You know, the hair is coming up and out of their scalp before it goes back down, so they can afford to have a bit more, can't they? The face, you're putting a lot of time into the face, but I'm not seeing much evidence that you're understanding how it's connecting to the rest of the body. Like, yeah, sure, we have a neck and then we have shoulders, but compared with how 3D you've managed to get the face looking, like even this, right? I feel like you're not understanding how these arms are attaching to the torso, and yeah, how the neck is attaching to the shoulders and everything else, how it's all sitting on top of itself. A couple of things, like just the angle here is probably going to be more diagonal, right? Let's just get rid of the necklace thing for now. Right, so you're probably going to get a bit more shoulder in. Again, I'm not entirely clear on the sort of style you're going for, so. And then maybe we put the choker back on that, and we think about how it's going round the neck in perspective, like that. Okay. I'll put this in the feedback channel, and we'll move on to the next one. Ooh. Next is huge. Is this, forgive me, is this Warhammer related? This guy looks like a Warhammer sort of guy. That looks like a bolt gun. But I'm not familiar with the extended Warhammer lore. You said it's a commission whip. There's still a lot of things to refine and smaller details to add, but the general composition is set. You think that there's quite a bit lacking, particularly in that aspect with how everything is already placed, but I'm wondering what a fresh pair of eyes would see, what can be improved from here. Someone else has already given the feedback of there's not much of a connection between the characters and the space they're in. And I think that sums it up for me. It's like two separate images that are not reliant on each other. They don't feel like they're standing on the same ground plane. Again, I don't really know what the commission is, and maybe this is out of your control, but this dude doesn't even feel like he's from the same universe as this person. Like, this is a medieval fantasy mage, and this is like a sci-fi soldier. So it's a little bit tricky to figure out at the moment. I think within the frame they're kind of weirdly small. Let's do some little drawings of how this could be laid out. So it seems like you're going for something pretty dynamic, but at the moment the ground plane is perfectly flat, which is kind of boring. I'd almost just start from the assumption that we're going to work on a tilt, and we're going to work on like a slight 3-point perspective, so any vertical lines are going to do something like that. Right, then maybe we can have character 1, and he's got his gun facing that way. You'll have to excuse my impromptu figure drawing. Right. Maybe this leg actually comes out, something like that. And then maybe character 2 is flying out from, behind character 1, so there's a sense of overlap, and they've got their staff or whatever. But they are intertwined in some way. Let's grab them and just move them over a little. So that could be one. We could have, let's imagine that actually the thing's in the background and it's maybe a bit more of a close-up. So here's Soldier 1. He's got his gun. And like you can see the flash from the muzzle flash like reflected in the helmet. Oh, that'd be epic. And again, behind him is this other character, and they're like fighting someone off this way, but there's overlap, and one character is bigger than another character as they're fighting, so it feels like there's a bit more depth to the image because it's very flat at the moment. Flat is the enemy of something interesting, I suppose. In this case, there are a lot of again. That's just a silly statement that you should not take as a rule. There are so many beautiful paintings that are flat, but generally a flatter composition you're going to want to use for something a bit more still, a bit more peaceful, not like a dynamic action scene with a black hole in the background. You know, you could even, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell what this is, so forgive my drawing again. You could even do like a top down where they're back to back, you know, and fighting, and you can see things coming towards them. I wonder, did you do any, you're not in the VC, are you? And you're not on the stream. I wonder if you did any compositional thumbnails like this. You know, each one of these took me maybe a minute, 30 seconds. So if you're not used to doing them, maybe they would take you 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But even that, 10 minutes is a very small investment to make sure that you get something that works, that you like, before you commit to like spending ages painting water and cracks and crazy stuff like this. Let's think about a quick fix, because I understand that everything I've suggested so far would necessitate you redoing the thing, and I don't think that's fair. So, quick fix. In fact, let's just quick fix is I just want some overlap, any kind of overlap at all. I think it's so important for these things to feel like they belong to the same scene. Yeah, I would. How can we do this? I would light them the same way. They're not lit at the moment, and that means that we don't, again, associate them with being in the same scene. So all I'm doing is putting a multiplied layer on and then lighting them. Let's suppose, and it's not the most interesting choice, but just as an example, let's suppose that they're lit from the top. He's lit from the top. The ground is lit from the top. This character's lit from the top. It's very rough. It's very messy. Maybe we turn down the opacity a little. But that change hopefully makes them feel like they belong in the same place. Let's keep that. And then that crazy black hole. I love the crazy black hole. But what if we use it like this to frame our characters on? So it's a crazy black hole that our characters are silhouetted on. Maybe I've gone a little big with it, but we'll see. So our characters are silhouetted on big black hole, and on top of that we have the you know, whatever, they're attacking in front of this thing. It's kind of graphic, it's kind of fun. Let's also just grab this, merge it. Let's separate our little thumbnails out. let's go that way. I think this character is leaning too much, so let's just shoot. In fact, let's just, and maybe we make them a little bit bigger as well. Okay, so I offer you 3 different solutions, but the overarching solution here is not to take any of these 3 because I think you could do better. But to bear in mind that you can do this, that you can thumbnail before you reach a final idea, and you could do maybe 20 of these, 30 of these. Or if you want a quick fix, overlap them, frame them on something, apply consistent lighting to both characters, and I would definitely encourage you to sort of zoom in and appreciate both of them a bit more, rather than all this gubbins around them that is, it's a bit vague. I'm not sure about like a perfectly photobash tank amongst it all. Maybe we levels adjust it to be a bit more crazy. Forgive me if I cough, but let's put that in the feedback, and let's move on to the next one. So the next one is Benkos. So we'll group them. You sent in a couple of images and I need to figure out which order they are in. Ah, these are just thumbnails. Not that. These. So this is exactly what I was just talking about. Benkos has done, which is nice. That's a nice illustration of the idea. So we'll have a look at these. I really like this central one. I like the symmetry, and I like the flatness of it. I know I was just talking about making things more 3D and how flat compositions aren't particularly dynamic, but I like that we've got some dynamism because of the angle of the log, but actually it's almost like a stage, and you could imagine 2 knights on a stage having like well, it's a stage fight, isn't it? And they're both silhouetted just really nicely on this. I think a lot of people try and overcomplicate their compositions. Like even this, well, now we have to think about what the inside of this log is doing, and is the inside of this log gonna interrupt the composition and the flow of the composition? Like, how did he get up onto this if this log is like suspended in air? I think it would be easier to just have the log continue off screen as if we didn't know, unless you really want to make a feature of it. But if you really wanted to make a feature of it, maybe you would do a painting where instead of them fighting on the log, they're fighting around the inside of the log, and that is the point, is that they're inside a log and it's like a big hollowed out redwood, and there are holes in the top and light streaming through these cracks in the log, and they're 2 little foresty people fighting. So yeah, there's different ways we could go about this, but this middle one I think is simple, but it works. I think it's breaking down over here a little bit. You've done this thing that I see a lot of people do, where you have a nice set of thumbnails. Even this one is quite interesting. Again, I'm not sure how he got up there, but maybe he got up there over there and he's been backed into a corner and that's the story that you want to tell. I'm happy with that. But instead of painting directly on top of any of your thumbnails, you've gone, well, maybe this is the one I want, or like a cross between these two, and so I'm going to start and do something very different. Oh, you've got some more thumbnails, have you? Okay. I'll have a look at these. Not that. I wish Opera would let me copy images properly. Okay. So with something like this. Yeah, I'm gonna be a hater here. So forgive me. I think that there is an awkwardness. It feels like I would describe it as indecision, but it might not have been indecision. But that's how it feels. So it's like, well, do I want to make a really short, funny character that's a little goblin, or do I want to make a really big, tall character? And then it's like a lot of people get trapped and they sort of half do it. They go, well, he is short like a goblin, but he's not that short, or he is tall, but he's not that tall. And it's this awkward middle ground rather than really pushing it one way or another. So in this case, it feels like you have that composition where it's like, no, this is a side-on composition with like a telescopic focal length, and our two characters are posed. Here they are. Here's another one. And that's very flat. Or you could have gone for one of your other compositions, which is like, actually, here's night one. And I think one thing that you might want to think about is that you shouldn't feel pressured to have the whole character on in the frame. If we want this to feel a bit more 3D, actually just having night one, leave the frame. How many times when you're watching a film do you actually get both characters fit on the screen, especially if they're weirdly different distances? So maybe night one is out of the frame, there's his sword, and there's a lot of overlap, and night two is actually over here, like quite close to night one, and then we're getting a big surface of this tree, right, that's taking up a lot of the screen, and maybe on this side is the end of the tree. So then all of those trunks, they have a purpose now because they're leading us back in to this character at the end, and it's almost like a 1-point perspective grid, right? But instead of going, no, I'm looking down the barrel of the tree, or I'm looking directly across at the tree, and going for one of those two extremes, which are, they feel like more sort of confident artistic choices. What you've ended up going for is, well, it's kind of straight on, but it's also kind of like I'm looking down it at the same time. And it's this, I just feel like it's an awkward middle ground that it's fine, like it works, but it's not as interesting as either of these choices, in my opinion. Because these feel more like decisions. It's that thing where, I don't know if you've ever heard it before, when people say, if you're going to be wrong, just do it confidently, because people will look at it and go, well, that was a decision that you made and I can respect that, right? As opposed to something that's a sort of halfway. So we could just, I like some of the painting stuff you've got going. I like a lot of the stuff on the log. I also think you're not quite selling the distance between these two characters. Like the size of them. This guy feels maybe awkwardly small for someone that's in the foreground. You know, could he be a lot bigger, right? And then do you see how now we have some kind of variation between this guy, he's bigger, he's closer, this guy's smaller, further away. I do like the simultaneous contrast you've got, where like he's dark on light and this guy's light on dark. I think that's clever. I watched a Craig Mullins video recently where he tried to do a painting where it was like a Scottish Highland with a little castle on, and he was looking at the riverbank that he had painted and he was going, I need to research this more. I don't know what kind of plants are on a Scottish riverbank. I don't know how the layers of sediment fall over each other and then how big the boulders are, and then where does the soil go? Is there sand in this kind of an environment? Would the tree roots come out onto the riverbank? That kind of a thing. I feel like this, there's sort of these big amorphous green blobs that aren't super believable. And not only are they not super believable, because I'm not really that bothered by whether or not this is what an actual riverbank would look like. I feel like artistically they're not a solution that affords you much wiggle room. You could imagine that if you said, well, actually these big rocks are broken up by cracks, and then there is a layer of silt or soil or sand. Well, you've now got a band of color or light that you can play with, and you can direct it, and you can say, is it going towards them? Does this lead up from the riverbank, you know, back round? Is it a path? Does this part curve round here so it feels like actually the river is curving through and sort of dividing them a bit more? I think it would be cool to break up this side of the waterfall a little bit so it's not completely going to edge of frame. Maybe we could bring out some of those tree trunky parts. Could we just vary this up a little, say that there's some other things going on without it becoming too distracting.
What do you think about the background? Like, how would you approach that?
I don't mind how you've done the background. I think it's pretty good. I think the values you've chosen are alright.
The way I did it all mostly is with gradient maps as well.
Okay.
For the colours. Apart from the log, I did that like manually.
I feel like, what time of day is this meant to be? It's meant to be like, I guess midday. They're being lit
Afternoon,
directly from above. Yeah. Afternoon. You're making a statement that this is an incredibly dark forest.
Yeah.
That's fine if that's a statement that you want to make. I think if I were to do this, I would want to imply that the forest is filled with light in some way or another. It can still be dark, but I just want the implication that maybe it should be a cool top light, that there is light coming from above, and that light is blocked by the silhouettes of trees or whatever else. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with how you've done it. Maybe the gradient map has made everything quite monotone. Like even this, we've now got like cools, we've got lighter greens, darker greens. Yeah, cools and warms. Can there be more of these dark browns in there? So you can make gradient maps as complex as you want. You can add as many colors to them as you like. I think people tend to make gradient maps very simple. So you could think about just using the gradient map to insert more hue variation in.
I think I'll probably do some more thumbnails for like a different composition, and then see what I can
I
do with
honestly
that.
think this one is so nice. I don't know how deliberate that character on the right. I don't know if you realized that you've done it and how careful you were with it, but like something as simple as these ellipses, right, and how far up this shoulder gets. The shoulder is overlapping the head. Something that simple, like we don't need the rest of this silhouette. The shoulder overlapping the head tells us that we're looking up at him, and we're looking more sort of side on at him because he's lower, and that's really quite nice compositionally. He's sort of on his high horse at the high end of the log, and he's more
I think
relaxed
as well,
right? Because he's got his sword on his shoulder, like he has the high ground, he has the advantage.
Yeah.
And this guy is sort of carefully approaching him. I think you have something nice going on here.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even notice that.
Right.
I think in my mind, that's not a shoulder. That's just, his front. That's his front.
Okay, but this, yeah. I think I would really think about the posing. I think as much as we can talk about like camera angles and lighting and logs, it's an illustration about two characters fighting, and so the characters are always going to be the focal point, especially if you're. I assume this isn't client work; it's just for yourself.
No, it's just.
But if you were doing client work, your client isn't going to be an artist most of the time, and they are going to look at the characters and they're going to go, "Ooh, look at the little people," and so spending some time with just the dude and going, well, what pose is he in, and what does that say about his mood? Because you could just as easily have this guy with his shoulders up, and has he got one arm sort of holding onto the other arm? He could be bleeding, like he's a wounded animal that's trying to corner this guy on a bridge, right? What does the position of his feet say? Is he sort of slipping off, or is he very sure of himself with one foot in front of another? Like, these are all storytelling devices that people pick up on without realizing, because we're so used to seeing characters in films and in real life that you just know what's going on intuitive, and that's such a powerful thing. So this is lovely. This is really quite nice, even if you don't realize you've done it.
Yeah, I love the aspect ratio as well. Love it when it's wider.
Yeah, it's super cinematic, isn't it? You could imagine even if this was like an animated film or something, when they get to the fight scene, the black bars could close in a little bit without you noticing. Yeah, I think that's so cool. But yeah, it's really nice. I can see that you've been working on your painting, which is lovely. So it's thinking about the storytelling of it all. I'll screenshot this and put it in the feedback channel.
Thank you.
Who's next? Oh my god, what have you done, Arius? Jesus. I'm gonna make a new file for this. Arius has said, you think you've gone wrong somewhere with a sense of scale and clouds in the background. The image is supposed to be fit to the width of the screen and act as 3 screenshots of stuff, but I don't know how well it all works as I've been looking at it for too long. So you're saying that it's meant to be like that wide? That works pretty well. I think you're doing a good job with the scale of things and clouds. Watch out for tangents here and there, like this, and I find it funny that the cloud is super organic and nice, and then as soon as it gets anywhere near this ledge, it goes right angle, and becomes this nice parallel line. So watch out for this. I love this. This is my kind of thing. You've captured this thing and it has detail, it has information on it, even if it's just implied with whatever sort of brushstrokey stuff this is. But it feels like it's smothered in atmosphere. It feels like it's going into this dense load of clouds. Part of that is the fact that you can see the shadow of it through the clouds, which not many people think about doing. So I really, really quite like that.
My secondary issue with this image, especially this top segment, the top third, is that you're supposed to be looking up at all of it. Excuse my dog. You're supposed to be looking at it from below. Oh my god. But I'm not sure how it matches up to the rest of the image, and I don't know if it matters less because I'm trying to do essentially 3 compositions in one, or I don't know. I don't even know how to begin to describe the problem I have with it.
Should we try and apply a quick fix?
The effect that you're doing now is kind of what I've tried to do at painting the whole thing, but I think I did lose it midway. And you're supposed to see like the bottom of this branch that the city trails off onto.
Is this
but I feel like
the branch, or
yeah,
is it all this stuff over here?
That's like that stuff is on the side of the clouds behind it, and the branch is the little protruding thing.
Okay. Yeah. So when I'm curving I'm only trying to do one thing when I'm curving the top of the image, and so I'm going for a curvilinear perspective. So 4-point, where down here, parallel with our eye level, vertical lines are vertical and horizontal lines are horizontal, and as we get further up, horizontal lines are going to do that and vertical lines are going to start to curve inwards. And so let's just carry on painting a little bit. So all of this, these vertical lines are they're gonna do that. Anything over here, let's say that we add on some new towers in the background or whatever, they're gonna go that way. You're not gonna see much of it at the center, but one way that we can make this look like we're looking further up at it is to just put more of the underside of this in shadow. Right, we relate the area in shadow as being the bottom, and so the more of the bottom that we see, the more it looks like we're looking up. And maybe it's thicker here. Maybe we go even further and we take this and we make it shorter, you know, like we are really seeing a lot of the underside of the branch and maybe even more of the side of the branch, and we're barely seeing that stuff on top at all because we're looking up at this thing, right? So that to me feels like I'm looking up, and that's like I'm looking side on.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a combination of those things, and I don't know how easy this is going to be to. I mean, you could literally just warp it and then begin painting over. There's nothing wrong with this. It just reads as a much more telescopic focal length, right? So it's just a different focal length on a camera. But if you want it dynamic,
I do have a 3D blockout that I tried to simulate with Blender.
Okay.
Just to see how it all works. But I think I painted over it wrong, and I think what you're doing is a little bit more what I wanted. Somehow I just didn't end up with it.
Okay, that's fine. Just like we painted more of the underside of the bridge, I think we'd want to paint more like we're looking at the underside of a lot of these clouds. So more of that shadow is showing through. And it's a foreshortening thing where I think that helps. Just like, oh, actually, no, I'm really pushing this, so I'm only getting a real slither of this. You know, if you were drawing a figure, I don't know what they're doing, and they've got their arm out, and they're about to shoot someone. Actually, the amount of hand you're seeing is like really, really, really tiny, but most people will go, oh no, there's a hand over here, and make it too big. So I think, yeah, same thing with the clouds. Like maybe on this side we see, no, it would be this side. So maybe on this side we see a bit more of the light, but still we're seeing mostly the bottom of it by the time we're looking up. We're seeing more of the side of it down here, and then that can be mirrored on this side as well. So this side we see a lot more of the side of it down here, and the further up it gets we don't see any of the side of it at all. What if up here we silhouette the city on a dark cloud? Let's change it off and on. And again, it's quite a nice change to make because it's only really affecting the top of the image. And it does make it feel taller. So, yeah. I don't know how much there is to talk about the rest of it. I really like the rest of it. I think for my personal taste, let's... Oh, I've got my horrible little doodles on top. I think personally I would want to see a bit like Benkos, just a bit more hue variation, but that's me. If you want to paint this as is, that's fine. I'd literally go in here and click replace color, and then I'd start selecting bits and just changing the hue, changing the fuzziness down, changing the saturation. So now we've got some warms, and you just do it again and again and again and again. Do it on a separate layer so you're not messing anything up. Maybe we want more purples, and again, and we can have this be fairly monochromatic in the background. Let's just focus on changing or adding in different hues to the foreground. Mostly here. Let's think. This wood is meant to be like grey though, isn't it?
It's like very pale brown.
Okay. Well, maybe we could just give it a little bit more brown. Just in places.
Oh. What I've done on the bottom is I've kind of lit the side of all the wood blue. Like, so it's supposed to be like reflecting the sky above it off screen. And it was kind of just to artificially light the bottom of the image, so it's not realistically pitch black or anything.
Yeah, I get that. It will be lit by the sky, but what you're talking about is a Fresnel reflection, which is a direct specular reflection of something. So when you see wood and it's reflecting blue light, it's because the blue light is coming in at an angle and it's reflecting the same angle back into your eye. But from here, if I'm looking at this wood, it's only going to reflect the shadow of the valley behind it, which might be a little bit blue, but it's also not particularly light. I think for the sake of depth, I would bring back more of the local color of some of this stuff. Do they have this little gnome society? Do they have anything colorful at all? Like just slightly colorful, like rugs.
They
was
do. They
something,
they
right?
paint some of the wooden beams and kind of inscribe them with like little animal patterns.
Okay, so
But I don't have time to paint that in.
but do you see how even just like adding in 5 little rooks sort of separates this from this behind it?
Yeah.
Whereas without that, it can become one big blob. I think you're still doing a pretty good job of separating it with atmosphere, but maybe separating it with like level of detail and more hue, so that the stuff smothered in atmosphere that gets really, really monochromatic feels even more monochromatic because this stuff isn't.
Yeah.
I think that can work. Is there anything else you want me to have a little gander at?
Nah, this has been enough. It's refreshing to get a new look on it because I've been staring at it for so long.
Okay, I'll
I,
slap it
I
in feedback.
thank you.
Who's next? You have a drawing. Let's put this back on the other document. Here's your drawing. And what's the ref? Here's the ref. So what was your goal with it? Just study the ref, do something from your imagination inspired by the ref? You know, have you gone down a particular route with this that I should know about? Otherwise, I will just treat it like you're trying to copy the reference.
Well, hey, sorry. I don't know. It was. I just wanted to draw something, and that was a reference that appeared in Pinterest, and I just drew over it. Not over it, just drew referencing it. I wasn't tracing.
That's fine. That's fine.
I don't know. I just like find it something weird with the anatomy overall. I think something's way off in the anatomy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the shoulders. This shoulder's getting really, really, really high. Like she's sneaking about or something. And then just look at the placement of this hand. So you got this hand coming down. The tip of this finger is well below the chin, which you have it here. But then this hand is even lower than that. It's sort of, it's not doing anything particularly active. It's just sort of resting there. But you've got it higher and larger, and so it feels like it's doing something, but it's not really. It's sort of just hovering there. So let's see if we can grab it and make it smaller, like that. Let's just take this shoulder, just knock it down. Figure out the hair. The reference doesn't really do it. I like to use the hair to reinforce the perspective of whatever I'm drawing. So let's get 2 heads. This head is perfectly front on. There they are. And so this side of the head is going to receive as much hair as this side of the head, right? And that reinforces the perspective. This head is to the side, so there's going to be much more hair on this side of the head than on this side of the head. That's going to make it, it's reinforcing that perspective, is this idea that we're seeing less of this because it's further away and it's behind this. So she's kind of looking straight on, but I would say that it's a 3/4, right? There is a slight tilt, so maybe I would exaggerate more hair here and bring in the hair over here. But necessarily something that you would have to do. It's very tricky whenever I get these, because it's so different to how I would ever draw, like the style that you've chosen. That is difficult. Maybe just draw bigger. Draw bigger document. I don't know if you can hope to extract a lot of information from this. Like exactly how is this nose working? And if you want to just imply the nose, then you can. But I think if I were to open up a document and start just sketching from an image, I'd open a higher resolution document. In fact, this is a document that I was sketching on the other day, and like those are my sketches on the document. So the document's quite big, and I'm drawing quite big on it. So I've got the sort of leeway to get a reasonable amount of information in, but it's a bit different from the painting that you're doing. Let's just grab the original again to compare with this anatomy correction. So that's your original, and that is my proposed solution. I actually quite like how you've done the hair, to be honest, the fact it comes out here. I think this hand sort of gets lost. When I first saw it, I sort of thought that this line here where the light of the hand is silhouetted on the dark of this fabric was sort of like a bust line on something like a corset, right? There's an arm. There's a head. But it's not. So how can we change that? I think this.
Yeah, I think this portion became quite like messy.
Yeah, I think maybe
and
the
I
wrist.
lost a lot of detail.
The wrist should be a little bit thicker, and then just again refer back to the reference. When in doubt, refer back to the reference. So you're drawing it and you're aware that something's wrong, and so just look back to your reference and measure stuff and say, well, and don't be afraid of drawing over your reference as well. So here's my wrist, and then it's sort of coming out in this shape, isn't it? So it's getting wider at this end and thinner at this end. I think yours is just getting too wide. It's almost like an equilateral triangle rather than one of these. So maybe we need to just bring this up higher, this angle. Sometimes when I'm drawing, especially if I'm in the life drawing room, I'll literally think of the angle in numbers. I will look at this, the top of this hand here, and I'll go, that is like a 30-degree, it's not an incline, it's the opposite, it's going down. You know, this arm is coming up at a 45-degree angle here. This is coming down at like an 80-degree angle. And making those very specific observations helps me think about it. I don't know if it would help everyone think about it. What's happening here? I think the other thing that's maybe tricking you is this line here for the edge of the neck, because her actual shoulders are somewhere back there. They're behind that, but you've got this line and you've made it even stronger, and so it feels like, well, now my shoulders are going to come out from that line, whereas there is shoulder behind this. going on. So maybe let's just not use such a harsh edge for it. Yeah, I don't know how much more I have to say. I hope this has been useful. Maybe I need to start practicing my stylized drawing so that I can contribute more. Yeah.
It was very helpful, actually.
I'm glad. The main takeaway is just refer back to your reference and just measure angles, measure proportions, shapes, things like that, and you can do it fairly abstractly. You know, how big is the head compared with the hands? I'd say you've made the head a little bit small here compared with the size of the hands. This woman has quite a big head, which I think is part of the sort of beauty standard in Korea or China, lots of Asian countries. Right, I'll put this in the feedback channel.
Thanks.
Who is next? Oh, you posted some extra stuff, Arius. These are nice. Yeah, they're very nice. I think we're done. I don't think there's any more. If anyone wants to put something in feedback last minute, then feel free. I'll hang around for a little bit longer. Those of you on the stream, you can just join the Discord. I think the link is in the description, and slap something in the feedback channel. But it's been a relatively quiet one today. So we'll wait a little bit longer. Do you like these little French bulldogs? I had such a blast drawing these. In perspective. These two especially. These ones look a little bit like pigs. But yeah, I've been trying to do these sort of imaginative drawing, painting things where I'm just figuring out some of this stuff in perspective.
It looks like you're about to go in your Kim Jong-gi arc.
Oh, that's
That's kind of what the perspective reminds me of.
Spoons! We got some spoons. Yes, I would like to go on my Kim Jong-gi arc. I think I'm going to start doing these. I've been, there's a guy called Mario Alfonso that I did a mentorship with. He's a really great guy. And he talks about doing them. One of the things he talks about is just draw one character and then focus your eyes on that character and just draw the next character in your peripheral vision. Like, don't look at it. You're aware of what you're drawing. You can see it in your peripheral vision, but you're not concentrating on it. You're concentrating on this, and it sort of helps you match the perspective intuitively. And then getting like the first two characters down is really difficult, but once you've got two to compare, you give yourself a focal length, and then you can start plotting in other things. And the beauty of it is, the more things you have, the easier it gets. So the first character is like, oh, well, that's fine. The second character is really difficult. Third character is still really difficult. But then by the fifth thing that you put in, you know, another French bulldog or whatever, or a van, you've defined exactly what the parameters of the drawing are, and so it's easier to slot something else into that scene. And yeah, I'll do more. Let's have a look at your spoons. Let's compile them all, gather them. Oh, do I like my art when all I see is flaws? Oh.
Yeah, deep and meaningful.
It's quite poetic. Yeah. Yeah, I like my art when all I see is flaws. I think you get to a point where that is all you see anyway, which might sound depressing.
Mm.
But like just like I'm going through this crit and I can see things that I'd like to change or fix or whatever else. I'm always going to have that with my own art as well, right? And I like it. I like having something to fix. I feel like not having something to fix would be very boring. And it would also signify that you've sort of plateaued in a sense, right? If you're looking at your
Yep.
own work and you're very, very happy with everything, then you've got nowhere to go. You've got nothing that you can think of about improving, or anything else. So the fact that you can see the flaws is good. When you say that you can see all the flaws, how specific do you get with those thoughts, right? So when can you actually, like, for example, what's the flaw with this spoon here? Tell the stream.
Yeah, well, I guess it was kind of, I struggled a lot with some of my saturation on the lighter tones. Like they have some of the yellows in their brightness and like oranges, but mine were kind of dull and gray. In terms of my dark tones, I kind of went overly dark, where in fact the spoon itself is like a lot lighter.
Okay.
Perspective-wise, the little end of the handle, it like maybe the left side's alright, but the right is like too deep and angled, where it should have been more of a like a right angle kind of to it. I mean, other than that, this is just generally like a dark spoon, and like the arrows in the middle don't have like the reflective, because it'll be like a groove, right? So it'll be kind of circular at one point. It doesn't have that reflective edge that, like, for instance, if like water going over a waterfall might have a certain bit, because the light would be
That
angled,
bevel
let's
as
say.
it angles back up.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
So
It's like, I guess maybe the question is like, how do I be kinder towards myself? It's because like my first thoughts are like, oh, I hate this.
that you be kinder to yourself by fixing the problem. If you have a really, really messy kitchen and you've not done your dishes in a week and all the food's going moldy in your fridge, the way that you be kinder to yourself is you clean up the kitchen and you get rid of the moldy food in the fridge. So if you don't like this, you really don't like it, and you can see all the problems with it, you're never going to be at a point where you go, I see all the problems with it, but I love it. You're going to go, oh, I know it needs fixing, so paint it again and make all of the changes that you just suggested to me, and you'll have a much better spoon. A spoon that maybe you'll be happy with, right? Or you'll be happier comparatively with it, right? And I find that's where I really get the satisfaction from, is I spot an issue, I know it's a problem, I know how I'm going to fix it, so I do those things, I fix it, and now I have something that's better, and you get so much satisfaction from that gain, from that improvement, rather than the image itself. Just like you would get satisfaction after you deep clean your kitchen and you take a step back and you go, oh, isn't this nice and clean? And you appreciate it for like a couple of days until it turns into a tip again. So yeah, I don't think you should be. I don't think you should be happy with this. You know what all the issues with it. It would be mad for you to sit back and go, I love this spoon that's riddled with errors. Now there's a caveat. Obviously, you don't want to be so negative about this that it prevents you from drawing or painting, and it really bums you out, and you don't want to do anything. But it doesn't seem like you're in that position. You're still painting. You're still trying to correct things. One problem or trap that I see is, and you don't have this problem, is I've had a lot of people in the past where they've gone, oh, I really hate it, it's bad, how do I become happy with my art? And I go, what's bad about it? And a lot of people will go, I don't know. And they can't tell you what's wrong with it, but they hate it. That's a bad position to be in. But you know exactly what you need to fix. So I think you're fine.
Okay, okay.
Get fixing
No, that
it.
helps a lot actually.
Yeah. And maybe another thing, if you're anything like me, how challenging do you feel this is for you? Do you feel like you're really, really challenged by it? The fact that you can tell me everything that's wrong with it maybe suggests that you could tackle something a bit trickier. I know that the whole point of Spoon June is that they are simple, but
Yep.
Because that's something that has always gotten me a little bit down. I don't like paintings when they're easy, if that makes sense. If I do a really nice study, but it's like, well, it didn't take much brain power, and it's fine, I guess. I get a bit annoyed with it. Whereas if I do something really, really difficult and I don't do it very well, the fact that it's really, really difficult gets me sort of encouraged and enthusiastic about it, because I want to figure it out like it's a difficult puzzle, you know. So yeah,
no, that makes sense.
Yeah, fix the problems on this, and then maybe the second part of Spoon June that I think everyone forgets every single year is to apply it to something. So you've done a lot of these spoons now. Maybe just do a spoon from your imagination, or do a study of a piece of armor or something, right? And try and so all those things you're saying, like keeping those highlights bright. Look how overexposed this highlight is. Let's actually just get pure white in there. Yeah, keeping these light colors saturated as they get lighter. I agree. Let's do that. Getting the perspective right. So maybe write them all down. Write all these notes down on a post-it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then do a study of a piece of armor. And I'll be very excited to see how it goes. And as you're doing the study of the piece of armor, look at all these spoon notes and treat them as though they apply to the piece of armor, right? Because they will. So you're going, oh, that angle's wrong. So as you're painting the armor, you're going to look at this post-it and it's going to go angle wrong. And so you're going to be watching out for angles, and you're going to be watching out for being quite specific with them, right? Getting them correct. You did the same thing I do. You went, oh, it's more of a 90-degree angle. Okay, so you're going to look at that. You're going to go, well, my highlights are dull, my colors aren't saturated enough. Well, apply that critique to a painting that you haven't done yet. That helmet or whatever you want to do. But yeah, go and make those changes and become more satisfied with the thing. You know, and if you're still not satisfied, then figure out what's wrong with it still, and you'll be doing that infinitely till the end of time. But that's the fun of it, is fixing things and getting better. If you really need to pick me up, maybe take a really old painting and repaint it and marvel at your own improvement. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Bully. Hello, Snelly. Hello, Fishflops. Fishflops, I wouldn't mind critiquing your attempt at rendering sketches. Where are you? Where have you put them? Or have you not put them anywhere yet? Fishflops.
Sorry, yeah. I'll put it in. Hold on.
Okay, I'll hang tight. Ooh. I hope everyone enjoyed the recent YouTube video. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it and leave me a really nice comment. And tell your friends about how it's the best YouTube video that's ever existed, and you know, the usual. I do like the whales. Should we open them up? God, it's taking a while to load, isn't it? Ooh. Wham. Yeah, I like this guy. Hello, Snelly. Where did you find my channel, Snelly? I'm always interested to see where people arrive from. It's usually one specific YouTube video with a certain Lord of the Rings wizard on the thumbnail, but it's interesting to see how people discover me. Changed your life and you only saw it minutes ago. Oh, good. Fish flops. You're trying to find a process to color. Okay. These are some nice sketches. Let's open this up. I think the process that you've currently got is fine. I can see that you've got like a base skin tone, and then what you're deciding that some areas should be warmer and some areas should be cooler. I think it's the cooler that you're missing. So, and I think maybe you could push the warmer, especially on like the face. It seems to me that a lot of these forms are rendered like quite nicely, especially this. And then the face feels maybe a bit flat, so let's just grab some of this. And actually, let's look at this singular breast. This is a sphere, or spherical at least, and you can see that at least like 20% of it is in shadow, right? I'd just apply that to the face. So we're going to get more of the face in shadow. Right, and it's going to be a softer transition around the cheek. And that's a tiny little thing that makes that feel more 3D. I think, and I don't draw anime, so maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. I would pack more punch into these warms. I'd go, they're really quite warm. Let's say, yeah, fingers especially get nice and toasty warm. Things like elbows might get weirdly warm. Kneecaps, yeah. Something a little funny is happening here. Because you're saying that this leg is facing in a lot more here than you are on the foot. Like the foot's not facing in that much at all, but the knee is facing in quite a bit. So either face the foot in further or make the knee feel like it's coming out this way rather than looking sideways, right? Consistency with your shadows is going to be a big thing. So yeah. That's you've been around since the start of the stream, haven't you? It's the same thing I told. I can't remember the username. That's a form shadow, so it's soft. That's correct. Okay, well this is also a form shadow, so let's soften that. Yeah, and it will get a little bit sharper in areas, but anyway, cools. Let's think about cools. So, blue, green, just grey. Let's just take some grey and think about where we can put it. Areas where you just sort of plop it in anywhere really, but and it can
There's no like science behind it or anything.
Oh, there will be.
All right.
If you really want to think hard about it. I think the most important thing to bear in mind before we even think about where we're putting it is that when you put it, when you drop in a different hue, you want to make sure the values match. So if we make this black and white, and I select this, and then I say I'm going to put some blue in. If I put it in like that, well the values match, so I can sort of get away with it. I know it's insanely bright at the moment, but if I started putting that everywhere, like putting in these weird, crazy blues, I feel like it wouldn't matter too much because it matches the value of whatever else I'm going on with. Right, it almost feels like reflected light on skin, but it's because the values are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we should try and insert a lot of the hue variation into the shadow. So let's take this, let's make it black and white again. I'm going to make it green, but you can see that that's too light. So I'm going to desaturate it a bit, make it a bit darker. That's the same value now. So, so this green, I'm just putting a little bit of it in.
Is this how you test it? Like you just black and white it?
Yeah, yeah. I just and are you using Photoshop or are you using something else?
I'm using CSP at the moment.
The way that I do it in Photoshop is with a proof color setup hotkey, but right. So we figured out that we can put some cools in. I think those cools look pretty cool. But in terms of the placement, it's tons of different things. So here maybe we are thinking that this is reflecting light from the environment because there's a top place facing plane going upwards. Sometimes the cools represent places where hair would be. So you wouldn't get it on an anime babe, but like if you were painting a man, you might find that where they might have stubble, you know, the skin might get a little bit cooler like that, you know.
At the
Yeah, you could have that like here maybe. Even women get hair. So we could imply that there is hair. Or I find that shins and things get quite shiny, but shininess is probably the next thing. You've got this really, really shiny highlight on the hair. It's anime, so
I only did that because I didn't know.
yeah, that's fine. But skin has hair on. Skin has hair on it. Skin has oil, grease, and whatever else. So we're gonna get some highlight in some places. You might get it side of the arm if you want. It depends how shiny you want the character to be. I would be tempted to get one down here, but yeah, it's I think it's mainly getting some of the cools in and worrying about the direction of your shadow, but I'm not an anime person. So.
No, I think it looks way better. But I'm just wondering because I'm just curious about the process you do for like just in general of like painting. Because I usually sketch a lot. I don't really paint that often, and I'm thinking like you block in the shadows, you may do edges, and that's it. I don't know what else is there to do.
That's kind of it. You can describe noise and texture within a group. So we could take this and we could say that there's more texture going on. There are differences in local color. So you're already doing that by the idea that, you know, the tips of the fingers are warmer than another area. But yeah, really it is light and shadow and the interaction between light and shadow that makes a painting. I don't think for this kind of style you would want to go more complex than that. I think that would be fine. I really like how dynamic some of these are. I like this. But when I'm when I'm painting, I'm not doing that. I mean, I painted this. I don't do flat color and then separate it into light and shadow and then paint on. I don't break it down into individual steps, which maybe I should.
Oh, you don't?
No, I just paint it. I used to break it down and go flat colors, and then I used to put my shadows on with a multiply layer and then paint on top of that and whatever else. But no, I now just tend to sort of paint it like one combined image, which works fine for me, I reckon.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mara.
No,
I've been following you. I've not been following you, but I've been following your art since the Cynic server where you used to post like every day.
Oh my god, have you been lurking since the Cynic server? Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago. Jesus. How many years is that? 6 years,
years.
maybe 5, 6 years since I've been in that server.
Mm.
Wow. Blast from the past. Thank you very much. We've got one more.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's not going to fit here, is it? Let's open up a new document. So you're trying to capture the mood of a snapshot of a night out. All of the lights and shapes of a city had me overwhelmed, and I had trouble simplifying the background, wondering what else I could do with this. I think you're doing an okay job of simplifying the background. You get a lot of bloom on lights from something like this, so you might end up getting these sort of how can I describe them? These sort of round light shapes. I think what you really need to be careful of is, well, all of this is really soft, but then you've got this like razor sharp edge to the building. You know, would that just be bloom as well? Blurred? I don't know. Maybe we could blur it. I think the main thing that's going to happen with a snapshot of a night out, think about the kind of camera that you would use. So, phone camera, are you using the flash on the phone camera? Okay, I reckon so. So what happens when you use the flash on a camera is you get a really, really thin drop shadow on things because the actual torch that flashes is slightly higher up or lower down than the camera itself, only by a little bit, so they don't line up perfectly. And so what you might get is, let's see how convincingly we can do this without it making it look like she's got beard. Stuff like here where those two lines meet, you know, is that going to be darker? Is she going to be casting a shadow on this behind? Well, maybe even that part. Is that going to be casting a shadow on whatever's below it? She would 100% cast like a crisp shadow on the wall, and that shadow might get wider the further down it goes, but this is assuming you'd want to do something sort of flash photography-y, in which case you'd also want to levels adjust it. I think you'd want to make it darker overall. Ooh. Maybe lighter. Lighter but with really crisp shadows, you know, I don't know. It's tricky for me to tell. I'd get some example images of the kind of lighting that you want, because I'm imagining that it's, let me get an image up. I'm imagining that what you're trying to go for is like that, like 1990s flash photography. That's what I have in my head when you say like a snapshot on a night out. You can see that anything in light is flattened because of the flash of the camera. So like a lot of this stuff would just be blown out, right? Not blown out, but it would be a lot flatter. We wouldn't see a lot of these more sort of subtle forms. Same on the face. Like a lot of that's going to combine together. The effect of flash photography on the eyes is like insane. You can get really crazy crisp highlights. even look at how crisp the shadow is, and that's on a bush. That's insane. But it's so cool to have that crisp drop shadow. But maybe you're thinking that this is shot on an iPhone 10, and it's considerably sunnier. So, like, it really, really, really depends on what you mean by snapshot on a night out. Because what I would be trying to do here is emulating the effect of a particular camera lens, camera flash. Not even that, but is it like a film camera? So is it going to have film artifacts on it, or is it a digital camera? How modern is this meant to be? All sorts of different variables that would go into it. So just hone in a little bit. Did you have like a ref you were working from, or a particular time period, or something in mind? Thank you, Snelly. We're typing. An iPhone camera, yeah, from reference. Do you have the reference? Do you mind sharing the reference? I don't know if it's like a photo that you don't want to share, but... you don't have the reference. Okay, that's fine. Let's just think generally then. Maybe I feel like this feels too light for a nighttime scene. Maybe I would be tempted to make a lot of this darker. Have parts of her fall into shadow, so assuming again that maybe it's a camera flash or something, the drop off might be quite quick from light to dark. We could vignette it down here as well. Maybe we lower the opacity on all of that, and then we could pop our lights back in, but keep a lot of this stuff vague, blurry nonsense. Some of this stuff is just... Is she holding? I just don't know what that would be. I think it's just about clarifying some things. It looks like a wing mirror from an old car, or like the flash pan from a really old camera, you know. So is that something that works in our favor narratively? This is getting really uncanny. The eyes are facing in different directions. So this is an iris, this brown bit. And then you've got your pupil moving independently of the iris, which is not going to happen. So let's just flatten this out. Okay, so the iris is in the center of the eye, and so the pupil is going to be in the center of the eye. It also makes sense if it's like flash photography that they'd be looking at the camera. God, that's cursed. Ugh. Is she... Could she be looking up this way? Towards the camera? Oh. Oh, it's the roller of the window. Okay. lot of this stuff is getting a little plastic, blurry. Like this nose is getting very, very tiny, and you have this very harsh line here. Like this nose is just sat on top of this part of the mouth, but you know that they sort of begin to connect with each other, right? In reality, so just have a think about that. This curve for the strap on the dress doesn't really feel like it's actually holding up anything. I would almost expect it to, and again I don't have the reference, could be that I'm completely wrong. I would expect it to go a little bit straighter, as if it's taut, as if it's supporting weight. That would make more sense to me. But yeah, just work on this face. Those eyes especially, they're a bit haunting, they're a bit scary. Make things darker overall. And yeah, research the kind of camera that you're trying to emulate, and figure out how you can make it emulate it more. Does it have chromatic aberration? So do the edges of things actually have like variation in color, where light bleeds into itself? How much bloom is there? For all I know, on an iPhone camera, like there's an insane amount of light bloom here. I don't own an iPhone, so not gonna be super useful here. You know, is there a load of light bleed onto the image? Well, maybe there is. I don't know. Gotta get a little bit more specific is all. Put this in feedback. I don't know how useful that one's been, but probably going to end the stream there, and it looks like we're out of things that people want feedback on anyway. So it's been a pleasure talking to you all, and I won't be here next Monday. I will be in a different country. So you guys enjoy. It'll be 2 weeks until your next critique stream. Okay.